All right.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to be able to share something with you that I hope will be meaningful to you and something that you can apply in your personal and professional lives. I'd be curious to know if you could just write in the chat like what your particular role is or how you're coming to this because you want to support what exactly. So it just helps to have me be in contact with you. So if you're able to write that down, I know you're all in Vancouver, is that correct? Yeah. Or at least you're in BC. So, all right. Yeah, so thank you for looking at that, for writing that in, because it helps for me to know. Okay. I also, if you could either write in the chat or just a show of hands, because I believe I can see everybody except for those who have their video turned off. How many of you are familiar with the work of nonviolent communication, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg? And this is the book, a copy of the book I have. Oh, I'm sorry, I've got the... Anyway, it's Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. So can I see a show of hands? Okay, so most of you do not. Yeah. Okay. So this is a body of work created by an international peacemaker and a clinical psychologist. So he was both, and he's very grassroots in his approach to communication and relationships. So that was something I really appreciated about Marshall. I had the enormous privilege and honor to meet him over some 20 years ago. He's no longer living. He died at the age of 80 years old in 2015. And during that time, the work that he did, he traveled around the world doing it. He worked in war-torn countries, and he worked with some very difficult situations. And he was also the founder of the Center for Nonviolent Communication, which is an international organization that fosters the work of Marshall Rosenberg, and we train people to do this work. And I think there's something about 700 trainers in the world at the present time, and people continue to be drawn to this work. So I was drawn to the work. Someone had, known that I was always, like, from a very young age, interested in relationships, like how do they fall apart so easily? What works? What doesn't work? And someone thought, oh, you'd probably be interested in this work. And when I saw the title of the book, Nonviolent Communication, I had a little bit of a resistance to it because I thought, what? I'm not a violent person. I'm not, they were recommending it because I was interested in that body of work, but I wondered what that meant. And within 2 pages of reading it, I understood why Marshall was calling it nonviolent communication. And by the way, he basically did it as a show of respect and honor to Mahatma Gandhi's work in nonviolence. But much of how we're educated to speak to each other, especially when there are differences and there's conflict, usually escalates the conflict instead of de-escalating the conflict. So Marshall came up with some very powerful tools, which he did by studying philosophy, studying East-West spirituality, just looking at how people operate, how they function, and realized that there are ways that we can really become aware of our speech and our listening that will make a huge difference in how we are with others. And not only that, how we support others, as many of you are working to support people, how we can support others to improve their way of connecting with others and to become increasingly aware of the ways in which they are likely to disconnect. So, yeah, and anytime you have questions, please raise your hand. I'm fairly accustomed now to seeing when there's a hand raised. You can either do it electronically or put your hand up and ask questions anytime throughout the presentation. There will be some breakout sessions, 1 or 2, so that you can practice some of what I'm going to present you with. And I guess probably a stretch break, because we are, I don't want us to get too used to sitting in front of a screen, which is a kind of a blessed evil, right? So I like to be aware of that. So nonviolent communication is founded on the following principle, that what human beings really desire is to be in connection with each other, is to be in connection with life. That's what gives us the greatest joy, not being disconnected, but being connected. And despite that, we spend much of our time in a state of disconnection. Like, go figure. That's the irony. And that has so much to do with the way that we're educated. And I would just mention here, I don't want to try to convince you if it's not your observation, but do we not live in increasingly challenging times? There's so much in our lives, so much busyness that perpetuates a state of disconnection. And when we're talking about children's needs and young people's needs, I mean, we all know that it's not uncommon for the babysitter to be in the form of a screen, is it not? So this is not connection, despite the fact that kids can become quite addicted to that. By the way, I have 2 grandchildren. So I have a 7-year-old grandson and a 5-year-old granddaughter. So, and I saw my kids, luckily, I was blessed to be able to raise children when we didn't have cell phones, but now they're everywhere. So the ubiquitous cell phone is in their lives and doing what it's doing. And this is so much stress for any parent to have to police. Parents aren't supposed to be policing anyway. That's not their job. Their job is to nurture and love and raise and give attention to. And when a parent is so stressed out because they have so much to do just in order to survive, this makes it increasingly difficult to do. So I like to just at least tip my hat to the fact that people are under enormous stress. And Marilyn, you had mentioned Gabor Mate, certainly you can listen to him talk about the craziness of the culture that we live in modernity. So this already creates a huge hurdle for most people. But in spite of that, there are things that we can do linguistically and just develop our awareness to try to at least carve a little corner for yourself that is mostly sane and a sacred place, if you will, so that your relationships are not so overly influenced or contaminated by insanity. Any questions about that, or does that make sense to everybody? Because I like to start there. It's important for me to establish that things are not well, and I don't personally see them getting better unless people become increasingly aware. So, but with the speed of things, that makes it challenging. Okay, so back to the underlying premise of nonviolent communication is to create a quality of connection that inspires what we call in NVC natural giving. It's a natural state. It's just a fun thing to do, isn't it? To be in connection and to be in, making life wonderful with each other. That's the spirit in which we approach this. And within the model, which we can use, by the way, for anything, you can speak this way. And I would add that it's a consciousness. It's a way of understanding yourself and other humans and communication. But we can speak this way when we're wanting to express appreciation for someone, or we can speak this way when we're mourning. But the way I'm going to be looking at it for the time that we are together is how we approach conflict specifically. And I will add that this is a crash course. So I apologize in advance for anything if I'm going too fast or it's like seems overwhelming. The handout I've given you is one that I would actually give to people in a 2-day workshop. But the reason I've given that to you is because then you still have access to something after this. and you can, refer to it. And we're not going to cover in that, but still it will support you if you're wanting to continue to study this particular work. So in a conflict situation, the way that people are typically educated is to try to correct or to judge, to label, to speak in derogatory terms. I'll give you an example of that. I don't know if you've ever heard anybody say this, or maybe you've said it yourself. Oh my gosh, you're so selfish. Okay, let's just try that one. Okay, anybody familiar with that? So in NVC, we understand that there's ways of responding to something like that. And the way we've been educated culturally to respond to it, at least most of us, if you're born in North America, and I don't want to cast a universal net on all of this, because some people are actually educated in a very healthy way. But I'm looking at the way that, the dominant culture educates. So someone says, you're so selfish. Typically what we would do is say, what are you talking about? Look at, how can you say that after everything I've done for you? And then you start to the inventory. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. How dare you call me selfish? And you're basically, you're pulling the poison tipped arrow out of your heart, and then you do a double dip in some poison and you throw it back at them. That's how most of us have been educated to respond to a situation like that or a statement like that. So imagine that you say to someone, or you overhear someone saying, you're just so incredibly selfish, probably the most selfish person I've ever met. Now, NVC would encourage you to respond differently than your habitual way of responding. And you would give some empathy to the person. And you would say something like this: are you feeling frustrated right now because you're not trusting that your needs are being taken into consideration? You ask that question. You don't defend yourself. You connect with what's alive in that person. And then your conversation goes somewhere completely different. Or as the Sufi poet Rumi said, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. And so that's what this process is attempting to do, is to get underneath the armor of defensiveness, of blame, of criticism, of name calling, of labeling, and get straight to the heart of the matter, which is we learn how to speak a language of feelings and needs. And we're going to be looking at that together. So that's what we're trying to do. And within the NVC model, we see that there are two different ways of two approaches. We're looking at how we express ourselves, our honesty, and how we empathize with another person or even with ourselves. Because sometimes there's no one around to empathize with you, so you have to empathize with you. It's not the best case scenario, but it's better than not doing it at all. So you connect with yourself. You connect with the beauty of your own needs, even when they're not being fulfilled at a particular point in time. So everything that this is based on, it really focuses on needs. That's the heart of this particular process. And it's an understanding that every single thing that a human being says or does, they do it because they're motivated by something. What are they motivated by? Fulfilling a need. Sometimes they do it effectively. Sometimes they do it incredibly poorly. And many times people are not even aware of what the need is that's driving them. And in that case, it increases the likelihood that they won't get the need met. And it also increases the likelihood of, I would say, disconnection from one's own self. We don't know ourselves when we don't even recognize what's driving us. We can recognize that there's an impulse, but then to know where it's coming from is crucial. So that means getting to know what are the needs that drive human beings. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to do an exercise. And normally I would give you flip chart paper and you could write it all down and I would give you 30 minutes. Well, we don't have that kind of time and we don't have the paper, but we can still do something. So I'm wondering about getting into breakout groups of say 4 or 5 people, and that you make a list, type it out, but don't, when you come back, I'm going to ask you to put it in the chat, whatever you have. Now, just be careful. You don't put it in the chat while you're in the breakout room. You'll have to type it in on something else so that it'll copy and paste, because it's my understanding that if you do it while you're in your breakout room, when you come back, it will be gone. So I don't want you to lose precious information. So we're just looking at what are the needs that drive human beings that you could say have a universal quality about them. Mostly everywhere you go in the world, you'll find that people do share the same basic needs. So I'd like you to think about family situations, workplace situations, community situations, but the needs are all the same. How they express themselves might be different, but the needs would be the same. Now, you have a needs sheet there. So now I'm going to ask you, please don't look at it. Okay. Yeah. Don't look at that sheet, because I want you to know that you have this inside of you. I've never encountered a group who did not know how to do this exercise. So normally I would hand that sheet out to you in person after we did this exercise, okay? So you'll get more out of it if you do it together. And I'm just going to give you, I think it'll be like, it's going to be really fast if you don't mind. So like 8 minutes, just write out as many as you can, and then we'll come back. I just want you to start to get into the groove of what we're going to be doing here with our time together. So is that something we can do now?
Jesus,
Yes.
you're muted. Jesus, you're muted.
So 5 people per room?
Yeah, 4 or 5. Yeah.
Okay.
And someone has said they're going to pass on the breakout room, so you can just not accept.
5 minutes?
Actually, I would say, you can go into the breakout room. You don't have to say anything. You'll get more from being in the room, and just don't say anything. That's fine. If you're not feeling well, take care of yourself, but you can still be in the room. Yeah.
Jesus, you have to do them.
¿Cuánto tiempo dijo?
Up to 8 minutos.
Creo que les di 5.
Ok, yo voy a admitir a alguien más aquí. ¿Me puedes poner en una? ¿Puedes mandarme a una o yo me salí? Waiting room, admit. Ruth, quizás con Ruth vamos a estar, no, porque yo salí de la... Yo me salí.
Estamos en el número 2.
Ok, Jesús, nosotros aquí podemos hacer un grupo, habemos 3, ¿ok? No nos mande a otra parte. Y todos hablamos español.
Hola, Marilyn.
Hola, Ruth, gusto verte, y Andrea también, que Andrea está lejos. Bienvenida. Ok, bueno, ¿tienen qué human needs? ¿Qué piensan ustedes? Cada una se anota la de uno, ¿cierto? Bueno, yo puedo empezar entonces, ya que ustedes están pensando.
Andrea, no te oigo, Andrea.
Oh, Andrea está hablando.
Sí, está hablando. Sí.
No se escucha, Andreita.
El audífono está en mute. A veces yo veo que le aplastan un botoncito al audífono.
Qué bueno que te fijaste, yo no lo estaba mirando, te estaba mirando a ti.
No, todavía no.
No, y no sé por qué sale aquí. No voy a hacer nada de esto. Dice dos unassigned, pero no voy a hacer nada para que no nos vayamos de aquí. Aquí nos va. Ok, hagamos, Andrea, entonces no te podemos escuchar. Ruth,
¿Ves
tienes,
que reconecta, Andrea?
anota de todas maneras, Ruth, ¿qué
Bueno,
piensas tu necesidades?
bueno.
Eso, si viene el chat, ok,
Hoy no,
Sí, sí.
ok.
no sé si está funcionando esto, ¿eh?
Bueno, yo tampoco, pero ya veremos. I'm
La
sorry.
Porque
necesidad de conexión.
creo que todo el mundo está en el mismo room.
No, no. Ah,
No.
bueno, nosotros nos salimos del otro. Ok, para mí es súper importante el pertenecer, el belonging. Ha sido súper fuerte en mi vida, pero ahora que estoy más vieja, ahora soy capaz de romper esa necesidad mía de pertenecer y decir mi verdad.
Sí,
Ok,
Andrea, sí vemos tu chat.
¿qué dices? Ah, ¿lo vemos?
Sí,
Ya no, porque lo
sí,
voy a
estoy de
mirar.
acuerdo. Estoy de acuerdo, Marilyn,
Oh,
con
ya,
eso.
pero ese es uno. ¿Y tú, qué otra human need tienes?
Eh, el de pertenecer me gusta mucho, el de tener conexiones, el de conectar con
Ujú.
gente.
Y eso significa, como nos aprendimos la semana pasada, que conectar es sentirse escuchado, visto, entendido. ¿Cierto? Eso fue la semana pasada. Am, yo quiero buscar a Andrea, porque chat.
Andrea dijo
Ah,
belonging.
¿qué
Sí,
dice? Belonging también.
sí,
¿Qué?
ajá, sí. Mande,
No te.
todavía no.
Ahí me
Ay,
Dice
tampoco.
belonging, conexión.
ahí sí habló. A ver, dilo de nuevo. Habla,
¿Ahí me escuchás?
Sí,
Sí.
Bueno, porque es una computadora nueva y se ve que no tengo que ajustar el audífono a la computadora que no hace matching.
Entonces,
Pero
aquí me dice
hay mucho
que
ruido de afuera en la casa.
ya, y nos vamos a salir porque ya terminó.
ya llegaron todos, sí.
Sí,
¿Y lo que
sorry.
está en el chat lo van a poder ver? ¿Lo que escribimos?
Sí, yo creo que
Okay.
sí.
O maybe, okay, whatever.
No sé yo
Thank
tampoco.
you.
Hello, Hamad. Hi.
Hello, hi.
Hey, nice seeing you.
It's
Nice connecting with you again.
same.
I don't know if it worked or not.
I'm at work actually.
Okay, I think we're back. Where's
Hey,
Rachel?
Jesus, so we all ended up in one room.
Yeah, sorry.
Is that, if you want to give me some ability to do the breakout rooms, I can do that too, or is that just,
No, I will do that. I will do that.
okay.
I think I have to do it, Jesus. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you can assign, I guess, some control to other people too.
Yeah, no, I will do that first.
Okay, so I'm just going to read what I copied down because I think I got all of them. And then you also do have the needs list that was given to you in a handout. But here's what I wrote down: safety, connection, acceptance, to be understood, respected, appreciated, housing, clothing, food, financial stability, to be recognized, to be loved, to be heard, to belong, privacy, to be alone, healthy boundaries, to be validated, fun, play, self-care. Oh, look at that. Someone got them all. Fairness, justice, to be seen, to be touched, to be cared for, inclusion, assertiveness, honesty, courage, sleep and rest. And then we all got back here. So, yeah. So excellent. So You see what I mean? This is information that we have inside of us already. We know these things. Now, when people are in the conflict space, these words very rarely show up, even though they are driving people. And why it's important that they show up is because you study that list. Aren't they great words? They're so positive.
Powerful.
Everything that you see there is positive. And this is especially important to bring in a conversation that is escalating and has, is colored by negativity and positionality. So you want to be able to bring this language in, and especially too, because whatever the need is that the person you're talking to has, you also have that need. And whatever need that you're bringing up, they also have that need. So now the skill is to develop the ability to speak about the needs in a way that is going to be unifying. That's what NVC supports us in doing, to be able to do that. So now I want to spend a bit of time with you. I'm going to put that aside for now, just recognizing that needs is what drives us. I want to look at what is it that gets in the way, because this is going to be the bulk of the work. NVC is actually super easy and also incredibly challenging. And the reason it's challenging is because of the skill set we already have to create separation and alienation, if you want to call it a skill about people, or the capacity for doing it, the ability to do it. You learn how to do something the wrong way, it sticks, doesn't it? So it's hard to break habits, and communication is habit. That's what it is. So there's in your handouts, there's a page that's called Alienating Language, and it's on page 4. So you can follow along if you want, but it's not necessary. But I just want you to know what I'm referring to here. So we call this the 4 Ds of disconnection is what gets in the way. And this is what you see people doing most often. So what's the first one? It's diagnosis. Someone's doing something you don't like. You tell them how you evaluate them and how you diagnose them, how you judge them. That's what we typically learn how to do. And it involves thinking a particular way. You got to think in terms of good, bad, right, wrong, appropriate, inappropriate. So you think in those terms. And it's not to say, by the way, that there aren't things that are wrong. Yes, but when that's the only language you have, it's going to be very hard for people to connect. So we're going to use a language of needs instead of a language of right and wrong. And there are ways that we describe people as, here we have a list: manipulative, controlling, stupid, loser, racist, alcoholic, and then language like you should, you ought to, you always, never, and comparing, you're not as good as, you should be more like, that kind of thing. So all of these things, they pigeonhole people, they put you in a box. But human beings are not static. They're complex, and they're multifaceted, and there's a lot of life energy, and nonviolent communication is supporting people to be able to speak in a language of life and not a language of judgment and diagnoses. So that's the first one, is the diagnoses. The second one we have here is demands. And this is language that minimizes choice and respect for another person's autonomy. Do as I say, you must, you have to. And this language, actually all of the languages, all of these erode goodwill. And they stimulate rebellious or submissive responses from others. That's what all of these do. But this one in particular. Now, this is tricky if you have positional power. So if you're a parent, if you're a helper, a counselor, a teacher, you do have some positional power. So then how do you motivate someone who's already decided they're completely disinterested in what it is you're trying to get them to do? So that's one of the things that NVC looks at. But you know how it works. Haven't you found, if someone tells you to do something, they order you to do it, what comes up for you? don't you kind of push back? Don't you resent having someone tell you what to do? So, you know, everyone's pretty much the same in that way. So that's where you get the submit and rebel. And even if you do it, it won't be coming from the right energy. You know, Marshall Rosenberg used to say this. He'd say, here's a few things. Here's something you should never say and never allow another person to say. All right, I'll do it. Because you're going to pay for that. So, because what it is it's a resentment that starts to erode the relationship. It's not coming from goodwill. It's coming from a place of demand energy, and you're submitting instead of being in cooperation. Because NVC recognizes that when we are engaging with each other from this in the spirit of collaboration and cooperation, we can do much more. We achieve much more. Now, there's a poem that when Marshall would travel, he traveled all around the world, and he carried a guitar, a travel guitar with him, and he would sing songs. And one of them was a song that he wrote, which was inspired by an exchange he had with his 16-year-old son, Brett, at the time. And I'm not going to sing it for you, but I will recite it for you. And it goes like this. If I clearly understand you intend no demand, I'll usually respond when you call. But when you come across as a high and mighty boss, you'll feel like you ran into a wall. And when you remind me so piously about all the things you've done for me, you better get ready. Here comes another bout. Then you can shout, you can spit, moan, groan, and throw a fit. I still won't take the garbage out. Now, even if you should change your style, it's going to take me a little while to forgive and forget, because it seems to me that you didn't see me as human too, until all your standards were met. I find that to be a very tragically beautiful rendition of what often happens between people. And most of us have been on the receiving end of that and have been on the giving end of that as well. So NVC offers us a different way of being with each other. Instead of demanding, you engage in a way that will elicit the spirit of cooperation. Now, the third one we have here is denial of personal responsibility. This is language that denies personal responsibility and choice with respect to actions taken. These words are disempowering, and they promote a victim mentality. We start to use bureaucratic language that sounds like this. I have to. The boss said so. It's company policy, just following orders. That's the way it is. I had no choice. It's not possible. You know, it's company policy. So you hear what's happening there. I'm saying that I have no choice in the matter, and I'm attributing the choice to whoever's making me do it. So can you see how this would be a victim language? And again, when you have positional power, this is very, this is tricky. It's challenging territory. The other way too that we deny personal responsibility is in the way we talk about our feelings. Maybe you've said this before. You make me so angry. So I'm now saying that it's what the other person does that makes me angry. But from an NVC perspective, what makes us angry isn't what other people do. It's what we tell ourselves about what they do. And the anger that comes up is coming from a place of that we value something. There's something very important, and it's a need. Our need is not being met. And rather than blame the other person, we recognize we become empowered. We recognize, okay, my anger is telling me something, and I need to speak about what's important to me rather than getting into, an embroiled conflict. So that's the third one. And then the fourth one is deserve thinking. And this is when we use punishment and reward as ways to motivate people. And when we're doing that, what's happening is the person becomes extrinsically motivated instead of being intrinsically motivated. And I think you'd see that it makes more sense for us to be motivating people intrinsically Because if you don't, then you always need to be policing them to see if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing in your mind. So wouldn't you rather have people change their behavior or do what you've asked them to do because they recognize the sense in doing it? They recognize how it will contribute to life, how it will meet their needs and other people's needs. That's intrinsic. They recognize why they're doing it instead of being fearful about what's going to happen to them, what will be taken away from them. So there's a distinct difference in these two. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to stop here because those are the four things. And when this is the way we communicate and engage with each other, what it does is it gives two choices now to the person: submit or rebel. And this, of course, is going to be eroding goodwill, and it's going to generate resentment within the relationship, as well as distancing. You know, I'm going to stay away from you because every time I'm around you, this comes up. I don't like it, so I need to be safe. I stay away. So I'd like to just check in and see how this is landing, how it's sounding. If you have any comments, questions, objections.
Come on, people, ask the questions. Some questions.
You know, Rachelle, that I have a men's group, and I used to tell them that our default in a communication is or defend or attack. Now, as you mentioned before, that when somebody says, "Oh, you're lazy," you never ask, "Why do you think I am lazy, or what can I do in order not to be lazy?" You start to say, "No, but I did this and that and that," and you're really not listening to the needs of the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So one time, one guy says, "I wish I can read the mind of my partner," and I say, "You can. That's your work. I mean, the only way that you can communicate, you need to read the mind, and in order to read the mind, you need to ask questions. Say, what do you want? What do you need? What kind of things can I do? Because if not, you are just defending or attacking to the person that is trying to communicate with you."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. My pleasure. So what I've just shared with you, those 4 Ds of disconnection, alienating language, this is the biggest challenge to overcome, because this is pretty deeply ingrained into most of us. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years. I still encounter this. Marshall used to walk around with a pad of paper and he'd be writing on it, you know, during workshops or during breaks. And people would ask, "Well, what are you doing? What are you writing there?" He says, "Oh, anytime I have a judgment about someone, I write it down." And because I'm trying to understand what are the needs behind that. You know, even after all this time, you know, the training is a powerful training. And guess what? We all learn how to speak before we learn how to think. Is what I'm saying a good idea? No, because the speech and the reactions are modeled to us. And little kids are sponges, and they just take it in. They take it in, and then when they're upset, you know, they start mimicking. They start doing what they see. You know that old saying, "Do as I say, not as I do." But, you know, kids don't operate that way. So this is how we tend to function. I mean, and, you know, all you have to do is look at all the heckling that goes on in the House of Commons or any political circle. Are people listening to each other? Social media, no, trolling and putting people down. This is pretty standard fare. If you start speaking and using the NVC model, you're going to be the odd person out. That's pretty much how it goes. Yeah. So to just be tracking this and not asking if this is happening with you, inside of you, but asking how it's happening inside of you. Because, you know, if you're born in this corner of the world, you know, unless you've got saints for parents or caregivers, this is pretty much the modeling, is what I've just shared with you there. Mm-hmm. And there is a page, I think it's page 2. How do you engage? You'll see that I have 2 columns there, the power with and the power over. I'm not going to go over all of it with you now, but I think it's a really good tool for you to refer to. And you can look at, if you go down and you see the communication style and the conflict style and compare the two, what you'll see is very often we move back and forth between these. It's especially hard when you're in an organization or in an environment. I'll just say in an environment where there's a power over and it's not really open. It's not really collaborative. So
Rachelle,
yes,
do we have those papers
yes, you have the handout.
in the handout? Okay, thank you.
So the handout, you had there were 2 things, right? There's the handout and
Yes.
there's the feelings and needs list. So in the handout on page 2, how do you engage? So this, you can just look at that and there are markers to tell you what's going on. You know, am I doing this or am I doing that? You know, so it can help you in that way. Am I open-minded and curious, or am I closed-minded and rigid and disengaged? Okay, and I want to say something about this. This is not to say open-minded and curious, good, closed-minded, rigid, disengaged, bad. That's not what this is. You could say that we are, you know, we're on a spectrum around things. This, you know, should you be open-minded and curious all the time? I wouldn't advise it, but depends on the context, depends on who you're speaking with. But if we're going to look at kids, I would say, yeah, you do your best to be that pretty much all the time when you're talking to children, because we're trying to understand them and we're trying to also model to them and also invite, you know, create a certain climate of openness and safety so that they will reveal, this is what's going on. I'm afraid, I'm scared. You know, so often people would rather be angry and defended than scared. And I understand the thinking about that. But if you want to connect, you're much better off, at least with someone who you're mostly safe with, is to say, I'm afraid right now. Yeah. Okay, so any questions before I move over to the model? Is this all making sense? Okay, is it useful? Because one thing that's important for me, for me, I have a need for I guess contributing in a meaningful way. So I want this to be relevant to you. So anytime you kind of go, this doesn't make any sense, just please let me know. Okay. Now I am going to, there are 4 steps to the NVC process. Let's say, imagine now that we are going to try to engage with someone and there's a conflict. We're trying to resolve it. There are differences we're trying to resolve. The first thing we're going to do is make a clear observation of what we're seeing, hearing. The second thing we're going to do is state what our feelings are. The third that we're going to do is state what the needs are. And the fourth is to make the request. Now, we've already talked about the third one. We've touched on it a bit, what the needs are. But what I'm going to do now is go to the feelings. So I'm going to leave the observation and the request out for the time being, because I'm getting into what's going on internally within a person. And what's going on internally is feelings and needs. So,
Rachelle, I just want to make sure that my understanding is that we all feel all the feelings, the good feelings, the bad feelings, all the ones that, you know, sometimes we want to hide, but as human beings, we all feel those feelings. And the idea is to be aware of that and work with that, because under that might be a need, I guess. Okay.
Not might, for sure.
Yeah, there is a need.
Yeah, there's a need. You know, when you're feeling poorly, there's a need that's not being met. When you're feeling good, there's needs that are being met. And I think it's important to state too, because we get to know what our needs are, knowing what our needs are does not mean that we're entitled to have our needs met at all times. We're adults now, right? We live in the adult world, and the adult world is your childhood is over and you don't get to throw a tantrum and not have your needs met all the time. Sometimes they won't be. And we take responsibility for our needs. If you know, for instance, you know, you're hungry, then as an adult, presumably and hopefully, you can do something about it. You wouldn't get angry at someone in your household because you're hungry as an adult and they're not serving you a plate of food. Okay. There may be exceptions to that, but I'm just making a generalization right now, just to give you an example of we take responsibility for our feelings and our needs. And in being aware of them, we can present them to someone else because in most cases, in many cases, other people will be engaged in the fulfillment of our needs. Why? Because we're interdependent. It's just the nature of being human beings. We're social creatures. That's how we roll, you know, those are not my rules. They're the rules, you know, about this is how human beings are. We need connection. We need touch. We need all of the things that you mentioned in the list. Yeah. I like that. Sometimes we are not truthful. Okay, well, maybe we can explore that a little bit more later. But, and you know, the reason we're not is probably to protect, either because we don't know what's going on for us, or because we're trying to protect ourselves. Maybe there's a threat of punishment. Who knows? You know, if you're going to choose between being punished or being honest, being punished or let me see if I can put these things together. Protecting yourself or being punished. And if protecting yourself means not telling the truth and lying, you're probably likely to choose that one for good reason. Yeah. Because the need to protect oneself would override the need to be honest and get in trouble. Remember that when you're asking kids, did you take that? Did you take that toy? Did you hit that person? Okay, that's a setup. So, you know, it's important to have some compassion. And if kids are being punished and having things taken away, then they're likely to start lying, you know. Okay, so let's go to page 6 in your handout, which is titled Feelings.
Rachelle, in the chat, there is, how can we respond if the person whom we are talking is not responsive or stay abusive at all times? From
Okay.
Sarah.
Okay, well, I'm going to expand on that one a bit later because we could use that as a particular situation, because I am going to ask you to provide examples to work on with yourself. But I will just say that in NVC understanding, people, everything a person is doing, they're doing it to fulfill a need. That includes being so-called abusive, okay? And in NVC language, okay, please don't get upset when I say this, okay? But it's just in NVC understanding, there is no such thing as a person being abusive. There's what they're doing. If you say the person was calling me no good for nothing, lazy person, the person hit me, threw me down to the floor, gave me a black eye. Okay, I understand we use the language of being abusive to, you know, and I'm not saying not to use it, but the NVC understanding is you get really clear about the actions that the person is doing, because it leaves more room for something different to happen. Once the person gets stuck with the label, they're very likely to keep on doing everything that has us label them that way. It's a tragic self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing that happens. So I just want to be very sensitive right now as I'm saying this, that NVC understanding is abuse doesn't exist. All of the actions and words associated with abuse do exist, but we're trying to stay away from labels so that we can shift into another way of being with people so they don't get defensive. You know, you tell someone they're abusive, oh yeah, well, you deserved it, or no, I'm not, or whatever. It won't help us, you know. So, but we will look at that when we get into more in depth in an exercise. So let's look at the feelings here. And I am going to ask now to go into small groups, but first let me just say a few things about the exercise. Feelings arise in the NVC understanding as a result of our needs or wishes being fulfilled or not, as well as any associated thoughts that we have. So effective communicators make the distinction between thoughts and feelings and are alert to how they influence each other. Does everybody have this exercise in front of them? So does everybody have it? If you don't, it's in the NVC handout here that Megan, thank you, Megan, posted, as well as the needs and feelings, but it's on page 6 in the NVC handout. So I'd like to have you go into small groups. Now, is that something we can do, Jesus, so that it's...
I think you're doing it.
Okay.
I
So
think
it's going to
the
be groups
co-host.
of 4. Groups of 4 or 3, however that works out. So usually it shows up in the side when you break it down, and you'll see a number of groups.
Nothing happening.
Well,
Jesus is muted.
Jesus.
oh, actually, I can do a breakout.
Yes, you are. You are the co-host. Yes, you are.
Recreate. Okay, I am going to recreate. No, 9 per room. Okay, we'll see if this is recreate. Okay, I now have 8 breakout rooms. I'll see you in 10 minutes, okay? Just do as much as you can. You're comparing list A to list B. They're not connected in any way. They're just words. I want you to look at them and look at the questions. How do they differ? How do the words affect the speaker, the listener? What do you imagine the outcome would be on list A versus list B? Okay, here we go. And 10 minutes.
I have control over the rooms now.
Okay, it says remaining 4 minutes. They have 10 minutes. That needs to be modified. I don't know why it says they only have 4 minutes.
Are you going to make one more breakout rooms?
Yes,
Okay,
I will.
I can handle it next time. I know how to do it now. And the other group, you want 10 minutes?
This one for 10 minutes, yes. Can you make that?
No, I don't think so. No, I think one is done. This one is done.
Oh, you mean it's going to end in 4 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just put them right back in. Shayla.
Hi there.
Hi, did you get put in a room? I'm just wondering if I can do that.
Oh, no, I just joined, unfortunately.
Okay,
I'm a
all
bit
right.
late.
So, Jesus, can you put Shayla in a room, because I don't seem to be able to do it. You can add her to room 4.
Thank you.
There, okay, thank you.
Yeah, for the other breakout rooms, I can do it, don't worry.
Okay, but this is going to end in 3 minutes?
Yeah.
How do you put the timer on it? I've never seen that before.
I think when you assign automatically, it says time, and you can assign the time, and you can assign a note when it's going to end. So you can put this going to end in 30 seconds or 45 seconds. And there is a window with numbers, so you can add or take out numbers from that.
So I'm gonna just put them right back in the room when they all come back.
Okay. Sorry, it's my first time, but
Okay, well, you can just give me the, oh, someone's entered the room, okay. Hi, Kimberly.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
Okay, can we put, oh, okay. Can we put Kimberly in room 4?
sure. Okay.
So I can still create, right? Because when I come back, I created these rooms. I want them to use the same one for this exercise.
So you're going to give another 5 minutes.
Yeah, because it's just not enough time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a good number of participants.
Yeah.
That was
That was not enough time, was it?
we did not have
It
enough.
wasn't. It
I'm
wasn't.
gonna just put you all right back in there because it came up with 5 minutes. So my apologies. So here we go again. I'm just gonna give you.
Rachel, can I say something? It's not easy for everyone to have access to the document. So I don't know if you can share it so everyone can have, we all see the same at the same time.
Yes, so it's on,
Because
you have the NVC handout.
Yes,
yeah,
we
I
do.
have it, but if I have to open the document, I won't see the Zoom and I won't be able. So, but I don't know if everyone can have access right now in this moment to the document.
Oh, okay,
So
so
can you
please,
share it so we are sure that everyone can see it?
But we're gonna go in the breakout rooms, right?
yeah, you just need to download it so that everybody download it? There's a little arrow.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Okay, so now when you open it, it'll be on your laptop and you can have that open and the Zoom at the same time. Does that take care of it, Anna?
I think that, Anna, we need like double screen. One for seeing people and one for handout.
Or you can use your phone.
Yeah,
you can use the phone to download and then you look at your laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have 2 devices.
Someone in your breakout room also might be able to share their screen of the document, and then everyone can look at that.
No, but you have to allow us. We are not administrating this, so you have to allow everyone to share. If you do, if you allow us to share, we will be able. But if you don't allow us to share, we can't.
Okay, that's actually not me, I think. Who does
Oh,
that?
God. Is it me? And I have no idea how to do that. If it's Marilyn, am I supposed to do that? You're a co-host, Rachelle.
Yeah.
You need to make everyone.
Allow participants to share whiteboard. Is that it?
No,
No.
that's not.
Oh, because
Can I share what I have done on my screen?
Yeah,
I
go
have
Haman.
Zoom. I have Zoom in a smaller window and a document open in another small window, both of them on the same screen next to each other. I can see all of you here and I can see the document at the same time. So you just have to make the screen small.
Yeah, that's one option. You can shrink your Zoom screen and put in one side.
On the top right corner, there is a box
that's
that
the
you click
easiest
on.
way.
you can also take a
Screenshot
screenshot of it.
but there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea to
Yeah.
put small.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to let you go for 5 more minutes, okay?
Thanks.
Okay. All right.
Oh, I'm not.
So, Jesus,
Mhm.
all of every time the breakout, it says it's for 5 minutes. I don't have any way to change that.
Okay,
So
I can change that.
When I'm doing this, I just always have it so that I just end the meeting. I don't even put a timer on it. So, and I
Okay, I can change that.
Yeah.
Where do you want me?
Well, just to make it so that we can put the time on it, like just leave it open-ended. Sally.
I don't know if it's possible. I
Well,
move it to room 5.
Abir?
No, Sally's in room 5 now.
Oh, it's in room 8.
Abir?
Abir has not joined. Maybe not there.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, not to worry. But the thing is to make it so that the meetings, that the breakout rooms are not 5 minutes, that they're unlimited. And I just end it. Like right now, I could close all the rooms.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
So I'm going to do that. I'm going to put 12 minutes and then we close all the rooms when you decide.
Okay, you can even make
because I don't know if we can just leave them open. Like.
Okay, just put 15.
Okay.
Okay.
I agree with you that nonviolent communication is the perfect, easiest way of doing things, but one of the more difficult things to do.
No kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's very difficult to understand yourself. It's not about the other person, it's about yourself, no? So that makes things very, very difficult sometimes. Are you going to have a break at
Yes.
some point? Okay. Okay.
I think I'm not.
Hola, Marisol.
Hola, hola Marilyn, qué lindo verte.
Igual
Ay,
también,
ay, gracias.
tanto
Sí,
tiempo.
¿no? Que vive el Zoom, por lo menos así nos podemos ver.
Sí,
Y tú
sí, sí.
siempre participando, qué linda.
Bueno, este es
Sí.
para mí súper importante. Y qué bueno
Yeah, wonderful
that
topic.
Rachelle is here doing this for us. Is it just us here? Back?
No,
No, we are
Everybody?
all together.
we all are. Yeah, I just realized that. Yeah, as well. Yeah,
Okay, need to make
Okay,
this.
everybody's back.
everybody's.
Okay, I'd like to hear how that went and what you discovered. What are these two lists? Tell me about list A and list B.
This is Novia. Hello. We were talking about list A being more emotions and list B the story or the feelings, or what we call the secondhand emotions, where the experience or the story happens. And how would the words affect the speaker? I think it allows the speaker to have language to express what they're feeling, how they're feeling, where they're coming from. And it could affect the listener if we haven't done our work with ourselves, and those emotions and come and take us by surprise. And it might be that, somebody feeling abandoned, or they say, like, I feel abandoned. It comes to our own story, and then as a service providers, we are, oh yeah, I've been there, and then you start telling your story, and that's not connecting. That's not having sympathy. It's about taking a moment and being aware of, tell me more about it. That must be hard. Tell me more about it, right? Just opening the space. And yeah, that's kind of where we went with that.
Okay. All right. Yvonne, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, our group spoke more about the feelings that may arise of it and needs not being met. It's more how it influences. It spoke more about cause and effect, and action and reaction. Some of the group members also spoke about the iceberg analogy, and the listener, how the listener gets more smaller and becomes invisible or not feels unappreciated or invalid, and then the speaker gets bigger, may have negative experiences, because the anger is because the need is not being met of some sort, and probably shouting to be heard. And yeah, I mean, both ways people are unheard, so they like sometimes there's like a battling match with one from the other, and it's not the volume that one of our members said, that it was not the volume actually or the action that will subside the situation. Yeah.
Okay. Kim?
I think for me, I find list A is definitely emotional driven. and it's all scattered all over the place. So there's highs, there's lows, there's you could see the emotion on the person's face. You can read the person more. Whereas list B is just a block, and it's a shutdown, and it's hurt, and it's pain, and it's feelings of hopelessness, that whatever I do is not going to matter anymore. They've almost like given up because they're just not feeling that they're being hurt. And you can see it on them. You can see it through their body language. You can see it in their eyes. You can see it with the way that they're communicating. And I can see what can happen here is that the list A would get very, very frustrated with the list B, because the list B is just shut right down. And if you don't have the list A who is not listening to the list B, then you're not having an effective communication at all.
So I want to pick up on something you said about you can see it in their face when you were talking about list A.
Yeah.
So I think we could all agree that you can draw emojis for list A. You cannot draw emojis for list B.
That's right.
So list A describes feelings.
Yeah.
List B describes something else, not feelings.
I think list B does have feelings. I think there's a lot of feelings there, but it's just embedded in that person.
They're not articulated.
They're not, and they've not been given that opportunity to articulate how they feel.
Yeah.
Because they feel
well, maybe they
heard.
just don't do it. You know, I work a lot with couples. I can tell you, list B words are used a lot. And it's not because people can't use list A, it's because they have habitually used list B. And list B words, as Harville Hendricks, who's written about relationships, would describe list B, it's the race for the victim position. Something,
what do you mean?
Well, it's if we'll just look at, if I'm disrespected, I'm the victim of your disrespect. If I'm offended, I'm the victim of your offense. So there's a lot of story attached to this. It's what list B is actually linguistically, it describes what we believe the other person is doing to us. It does not describe our feelings. It describes in disrespected, I believe you are disrespecting me. And I'm not speaking about my feelings. I could think a person is disrespecting me and feel hurt, scared, angry, furious, outraged, confused, bewildered. I could feel a lot of different things. So disrespected only tells me what I think a person's doing to me, which is the piece that I'm really wanting us to look at, to start to see. Does that make sense, Kim? Yeah.
I just think that with list B, it's a very misunderstood kind of list. I think it would say to other people, oh, you're being the victim, you're playing the victim card, is what it looks like when I look at list B. And I think that there is more to this person than what meets the eye. And I think that in order to really get down to the nitty-gritty of what's going on for this person, you need to have a good listener.
Oh, yes, absolutely, you do.
Yeah, and if you don't have a good listener, and you have somebody who is constantly interrupting or constantly redirecting it back to them all the time, then you're never ever going to get the walls down of the list B.
So the empathy for list B, which is what we're going to be looking at, we're going to take a little brief break as soon as we're finished this section. But we want to be able to translate what we hear people say when they use list B, because most people do go to list B, and list B right there has 10 words on it. But I'd like to ask you now to go to the handout that says feelings and needs, the feelings and needs. And at the top of the page, it says feelings when we don't enjoy what's happening. And at the bottom of the page, there's a box with a flag on it. Does everybody see that?
I do.
Okay. So it says, this is an expanded list B. Important. The following words, a partial list, are often confused as feelings when in fact they are interpretations or assessments of others' actions. Abandoned, abused, accused, attacked, belittled, betrayed, blamed, boxed in, bullied, cheapened, cheated, coerced, condemned, controlled, cornered, criticized, devalued, etc. Okay? This is a long list of list B. And here's one of the things I encourage people to do. And this would be a kind of a homework or something you would do after this course, if you wish, is you study that list and you circle the ones you use when you're talking to, you know, maybe your people at home or people at work. You use the words you use in conflict situation. And then Carmen, same page. It's just the handout that's called Feelings and Needs, which is a 1-page or 2-page handout. Then you circle the ones that people who are closest to you use. And then you decide you're not going to use those words anymore yourself, because it will force you to be more honest and clear about your feelings. Because when we use these words, we don't describe feelings, we describe what we believe others are doing. So, you know, just in case that's not clear, if I were to say to you, I feel betrayed, I could say it to you like this: I feel betrayed. I could also say it to you like this: I feel betrayed. Clearly, I did not describe my feelings. Does everybody see that? I told you what I believed you were doing. The first time I would have said, I'm so angry. The second time I would have said, I feel hurt. That would be a description of feelings. Now, you know, when this ends in an hour and a half, people are going to continue to use those words, even though you'll see, oh, wow, those are not feelings. So what will you do in those moments? So here's one thing I advise you not do, is say, by the way, that's not a feeling that you're telling me. Although I have seen people use that successfully when they have an agreement that they want to learn this. And they decide, look, when we start to when we start to escalate and when we start to dysregulate, let's use this list to help us come back to earth and recognize what our actual feelings are. And when you're working with people and they say things to you like, I feel abandoned, this is the opportunity to say something like, are you feeling alone? Because abandoned means somebody did something to me. They might be angry. They can have a lot of feelings at the same time, but we really want to help people connect with their feelings and their needs. That's what empowers the person, not to think that what other people do are the source of their feelings all the time, but to get them in touch with their needs. And if they understand their needs, they can make better choices and they can do things in order to increase the likelihood of their needs getting met. But when they're constantly using list B words, they are in the victim position. So we want to help liberate people from that and have them describe your feelings and then say what your needs are. Abandoned, you would say something like, are you feeling alone? Because you have a need for connection and for love, whatever it is. The context of the situation will best describe what the need is. Yeah. All clear? Does that make sense? To me, this is a very important piece. is really learning feelings. And it's so good with kids because you can actually use little emojis like, let's look at this, you know, how are you feeling right now? And all feelings are accepted because that's what human life is. There's hardship and there's great times. And it's important to learn how to describe what's going on in the internal landscape vis-a-vis what we're experiencing. So how about a time for a bit of a stretch? And how much time do you normally, is 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Could you tell me what you would like?
I think that a past presenter have done 10 minutes.
Okay, let's go with 10 then, that works. So I will see you back here at 2:40.
Okay, so
Okay.
I need Jesus or somebody to help me. Do I pause the recording and where do I find that?
Oh, yeah, you can pause it. I can pause it. How about
Can you please? Yes, because
exercise we did.
yeah, somebody did the
Okay,
recording.
I'm glad you started that. Okay.
No, I didn't. I don't
Oh, you didn't? I didn't either. Okay. Jesus. Okay. Between the three of us, we'll figure it out. So does anybody have any questions regarding the feelings part of the NDC process? Okay. Yes.
Hi.
Yeah.
So I've been just thinking about that, those feelings that's not feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like they, even though they are feelings caused by someone else, I don't know if we cannot consider them feelings. Because, you know, what about the feelings of...
Can I just interrupt you for a second? I'm not sure. I'm having a hard time hearing you because there's someone else talking at the same time. Can you say that last part again? I'm not sure where it's coming from, but
okay. Yeah. Is it better? Is it okay?
Yes.
Well, I have a lot of staff working in the office too, but I heard that voice as well. So it's the part about those feelings, because okay, for example, like feeling accepted. If I feel accepted, does that mean that it's not a feeling? Because I feel accepted by someone else. That's an example.
You know what? This is a great question. Yeah. And it's one that people would ask in a more advanced workshop. But okay, so let's go with it, because first of all, it's positive, right? When you say you feel accepted, it's a positive feeling. But it is, I mean, technically speaking, we wouldn't call it a feeling. It would be, I mean, accepted is what you're telling yourself is happening. A person is accepting you, or the environment is accepting of you, or you're welcomed or something. But would be that your nervous system, you feel calm. That would be the feeling. But I wouldn't discourage the use of the word, I feel accepted, or I feel welcomed. Right. Or I feel included, or I feel a sense of belonging. They're not feelings, but they don't mess with the connection. If you say I feel unaccepted, that will mess with the connection. And so I would encourage you because you'll see it, you'll feel it. And so to say I feel unaccepted is, a person could say, well, that's your problem because I'm not doing anything. I don't want you to enter into that kind of conversation.
Right.
If you say you're unaccepted, are you angry? Are you hurt? Are you confused? Are you mystified? You know what I mean?
How I see those words they are like deeper in our small group. Those are the iceberg analogy that we use. Those are the deeper feelings that we have, and more complicated, more complex. And I feel like when we're talking to someone and we can't say that, hey, that's not a feeling word. Can you explain it more? That I don't know if the person's gonna feel even more like isolated or feel even more like unheard. So instead of maybe we can dive into something else to describe that better in a way, or because I don't want to invalidate someone by saying, hey, that's not a feeling, that's dive in.
Yeah, like I said, only use that if you have an agreement that you're going to do that. Most people won't like that. So you would say, if someone says, let's say they're saying it, you're the helper, okay? You're the coach, you're the counselor, and they're telling you, I feel unaccepted vis-a-vis other people. This is your opportunity to help them really clarify and get in touch with what goes on inside of them. Because if they say that to these other people, it's not going to help them. So what your job then is, you translate what they said into feelings and needs. So you wouldn't say, that's not a feeling. Because you're in the room with them or you're in front of them, you have mirror neurons and you can pick it up. So are you feeling sad? Because you have a need for acceptance. Acceptance is a need, not the feeling. Sadness is the feeling. Acceptance is the need. So you sort those two things out. This is empowering for people. Not initially, they don't know what's happened. Well, that's what I said. It's actually not what they said. But you're giving them the language. Are you feeling sad or alone? Because you have a need for acceptance. Everyone has that need. Is that what's going on for you? Does that answer your question?
Yes.
So anytime people use that language, you start translating so that they're not victim anymore. Yeah. So that's an excellent question. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. So we've got Anas. Is that how I say your name? Oh, you're muted, I think. Okay, now I can hear you, I think. No, can't hear you.
How about now?
I can hear you now. Yes. I can hear you now.
Okay, that's much better. I really want to thank you very much, for this interesting, topics, which is, like, not as a settlement worker, but also as a family member and friends and those stuff. It's really, really rich of information. Like, we can use it in the daily basis. My question is just, to double check that I really, really understand, what's going on, because it is like helping the speaker who's going through a situation or whatever feelings that to identify in which feelings that he is going through. Is that what you mean from the whole thing?
You're helping them to identify. Just a second. There's an echo.
Yeah. So the process of communicating with the person, let's say not the victim, I prefer to call
client,
a client or any person or a family member, to identify the feelings that he is going through. And once it is identified, and then the supportive parts with empathies or with directions comes after. Is that right?
That's right. But more important than the feeling is the needs. You want people to know what the needs are. To the feelings are 5%. The need is 95. Because when people understand what the need is, whether it's love, connection, belonging, trust, that's where the energy is. If they're only in touch with feelings, then they don't know how to solve it or how to take steps to resolve and get to, if all I know is I feel so confused or I feel so angry. Well, what's your need? I have no idea. If you have no idea what your need is, you have no idea what to do. Does that make sense? Okay. If I know my need is trust, for instance, then I can begin to build trust in the relationship.
Yeah.
Or an honesty. I can begin to take a step to reveal myself and invite you to reveal yourself. But if I have no connection with my need, I don't know what to do. And whatever I do is likely to be ineffective. And it could get me into a lot of trouble, including into prison.
So it's just like a kind of approaching, I mean, the person and getting identified with what is the need that he wants it, and or she wants it, and then is there like another role that comes after by, for example, giving or directions, rules, or just like leaving the communication just goes normally?
Well, I think you're a little bit ahead. We're going to do an exercise, and basically you're going to empathize. What we want to do is get the person to be in touch with their needs so that they can become aware of that and then themselves come up with some ideas about what they could do. This doesn't prohibit you as a helper from saying, I do have some thoughts about what you might do, but I'd like to check with you first to see if anything's coming to you. If not, would you like to hear what's coming to me? So together we can do this. I mean, we are interconnected. And so it's not like you have to figure it all out by yourself. That's a rule. No, it's more like, I'd like to give you the opportunity first, because that gives people a sense of agency, and I can do stuff on my own. That feels good. But you're there too to guide and support in any way you can. Yeah. So, Kim, I saw you had your hand up. I don't know if that's still the case or.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about that list fee. I think with that list too, like there's underlining issues going on for that person that is just really, really hard for them to express because they're feeling the way they are feeling. And I think that for me, like I think it's important that we don't call them victims.
I would never encourage you to do that.
Yeah, I think we have to be sensitive.
Yeah, so I'm glad you're bringing that up, because I want to make a distinction between what I'm teaching something right now. You by virtue of asking them or supporting them and getting in touch with their feelings and needs, you'll witness them becoming empowered.
Right.
But when I say, I feel abandoned,
so then I would say to you, I would ask you, I say, well, why do you feel that way? What makes you feel that way?
Because my father left me when I was 4 years old. And that's the problem I've had ever since. I can't trust anybody. And
And I'm sorry that that happened to you. And then you would start that dialogue of open communication, right? But I think if we just categorize people as that right away, it just, to me, like it just looked like there was no space for openness. There was just a shutdown, and there's trust issues with that. There's major trust issues, right? With that list.
Let me just say something here, because I can see what you're saying, which is absolutely makes sense. I want, everyone is different. Whoever's in front of me, I'm going to track. But one thing I would personally never do is if someone says they feel abandoned, I am not going to repeat it to them. I'm not going to do that. I'm still going to stay connected by saying, do you feel pretty alone now then? And you have a need for connection. If it's, are you kind of wondering what your father?
But isn't that replacing the word? Like you're saying, well, instead of using abandoned, we can use the word alone. But that's how that person is actually feeling on the inside at that point. So can we not ask, why do you feel that? What makes you feel that way? Then we can bring them out a little bit more than to just say, well.
You see what I did when you asked me?
Yeah.
I told you it was because of my father. So my finger goes out there. To be empowered is to really get to know what's going on in here.
Okay.
So, I mean, do whatever works for you, but in the NVC understanding, abandonment does not exist. And I know it exists, okay, but I'm just saying that when I say it doesn't exist, it has a somewhat of a shock to it that asks us to think a bigger thought than abandonment. Is it always that someone getting up and leaving, is it an abandonment issue? I understand the feeling, but if people are to describe the feeling more, and I can tell you one, for instance, this is not part of the course, but I'll just throw it in here. There are personality disorders, and one of them is so focused on abandonment issues. And that particular personality disorder also has enormous trouble saying how they feel.
Yeah.
So I want to put them in touch with how they feel. And I'm encouraging, I'm drawing that out. Are you feeling alone? Are you feeling hurt? So people can start to put the word with what's going on. Because if it's only what I see that person doing to me, and then I can't get out of it. I'm trapped in it. So however you can connect, but I'm offering you here the format of NVC, which has a way of approaching things, which may
So
be
it's basically, so when I'm asking you, so basically you think it's like, okay, this is, because I think this is the part that I'm missing, is that there's a step before a step. And the step is basically giving that word abandonment another word that doesn't, to get that communication. Because when you directly told me what happened to you, then you shut down.
Yeah, I wasn't connected to my feelings at all.
Right, because you just basically said, okay.
Abandonment isn't a feeling.
Yeah, no, I know that. Yeah.
So it's an interpretation, and I'm really wanting to support the person in getting to what the feelings are. Now, the thing is, even though I'm saying these words in list B are not feelings, they're very useful because every single one of them points directly to the need. So as soon as someone says, I feel abandoned, you know instantly they have a need for a connection, to know they matter, to know that they're valued, and you go there. And that's like food, that's medicine for a person to hear that.
Yeah.
Instead of continuing the narrative of you being abandoned. So I'm gonna feed you. And the language, like it's really about precision.
Yeah.
That's true.
You're wanting to be super precise, and it can be annoying at first, okay? As I'm teaching this, if it's sort of maybe you kind of, oh, it's so annoying. But I'm doing that because we only have 3 hours together, and it's already, we only have 1 hour left. And typically this workshop is 2 days.
Oh, wow.
And I do it up at Hollyhock for 5 days every year. So, I mean, it's a lifetime of learning how to change how you see things. It will change how you see the world. When I first met Marshall, I was just wowed after having met him. And I went home, I'd read the book, I went home, my husband said, so how was the day? It was a 2-day workshop. And I looked at him and I smiled. I said, it was amazing. And then I broke down in tears because it was the first time that I had come in contact with something that I felt I was looking for my whole life. Like, is this it? Is this how people are going to be with each other when there are differences? Surely we can do better. And so I was just so touched, like deeply touched by Marshall speaking in these ways. And some of it I found frightening in a way, or, you know, when you make a direct request, can you tell me what you're hearing me say? I was like, oh, I'm never going to say that to a person. I'm not assertive like that, but boy, over time I realized, no, I suffer every time I don't ask that question. When I can tell that the communication is needing that level of clarity. So yeah, so I appreciate your question, and it's because it allows us just to go deeper into the material. But so I'd love to give you an opportunity to try out a particular scenario now, and I'm going to tell you that, I mean, I'm not going to go into detail into the first step and the last step. To make a request, you make sure it's clear and doable. So I would say, for instance, would you be willing to look at me when you're speaking to me? Is different than saying, would you be willing to be more attentive? It's too vague. Would you be willing to be more loving, more respectful? Not doable, too vague. You need to be very clear and specific about what actions would meet the need for love, respect, attention, whatever that is, okay? So, and it must be doable. So that's one. And when it comes to the observation, when we're starting a conversation with someone, and maybe we're going to talk about something difficult, I need a starting point. What's the reference point? So I could say something like, when you took the last piece of pie without asking anybody else if they would like some, okay? That's clear. When I say, when you were so inconsiderate at the gathering yesterday, do you see the difference? Okay, instantly the person's going to get defensive, which doesn't mean that a person won't get defensive when we make a clear observation. It just means that we're clean with the language. And quickly you're going to go from observation to feeling to need, and then request. Okay. So, and then it's going to go back and forth. If you're doing that, that's you making an honesty statement. Whereas if you're going to connect with the other person who says, oh, well, it looked to me like everybody had already had a second piece. Okay, so are you feeling kind of frustrated and annoyed right now because you have a need for some acknowledgement for the fact that you were thinking about others? Okay, that's going to be my empathy statement. Okay. So honesty, empathy. So I'm going to imagine, I think for our purposes, we'll go to the empathy statement side. And so that would be, I'm going to give you an opportunity here to do this. So on page 9 is honest expression, is on page 10 is empathic listening. So please promise me that you will do page 9, even though we're not going to do it here. Okay, because this is super helpful for us. Page 9 is going to be useful when you want to initiate a conversation, or you're so tired of asking person to do this over and over again. So how are you going to do it? You go to page 9. But page 10 now is for helping us to respond to someone else's stress or whatever's going on for them, their anger, their stress, because pretty much all of you mentioned that you're helping people. So this would be my go-to. That's where I would go first. I want to say something too, just about conflict and about biology and what's happening to our bodies. You know, I'm going to guess that a lot of you already know this, but it's always a good reminder that when we're triggered, or something's activated, and we have the amygdala response, right? So everybody familiar with that? You know, inside the brain, in the center of the brain. So this is the fight, flight, and freeze response that you have, which is a very good design. It ensures the survival of people. And so it's there to keep you safe. And evidently, the amount of time you have between the stimulus and the response is less than a second. It's apparently less than a quarter of a second. So we have that automatic response. You can think of times, for instance, if you've ever, stepped out on the street from the curb and then a car comes racing down, like it happens so quickly, doesn't it? Your whole stomach, you get that response. And then depending how quick you are to anger, you get the next one, which is, you should have been looking, or whatever, or maybe it was your fault and I should have been looking. But the first thing that happens is the fear. So we've got the fight, flight, or freeze response. That happens in a quarter of a second. And are people aware of what's happening to your blood in that moment? Yeah? Okay. So I see Marilyn, you nodding yes. You want to tell us all what's happening there? You're muted.
My whole body needs all the blood, a lot of blood to defend myself from whatever threat I'm perceiving. So it's taking it from different parts of my body that are not needed right now. And one of those is my brain that uses a lot of blood and oxygen. So when that happens, I can't even think, right? Yeah. So
you said it. Yeah. So your blood is redistributed to your extremities.
Right.
Your large muscles, so you can, hit hard, move fast, rescue someone, whatever you need to do. And it leaves the neocortex. So your ability to reason in such moments is hugely compromised. And I mean, it's an excellent design. It's there to keep us safe. So, you're walking out in the woods and there's a grizzly bear and you want it. You're grateful to have that kind of response. But my understanding from Daniel Goleman's work in emotional intelligence is the same system is activated when you've got someone in front of you saying, well, I have a different opinion. Okay. So depending on how able you are to, be aware of that and keep your calm. So it goes to your extremities, capacity to reason, hugely compromised, super important when we're talking about domestic violence or anger. Okay. People cannot think in those moments. So we want to be able to give people tools to think. I mean, that's why things like practices like meditation, just stop, count to 10, take a breath, breathe. Like the breathing is what will calm the nervous system down and have the blood get redistributed. But you understand that these impulses can be so strong. And even though I wouldn't approve of what a person does when it's harmful to another person, I have compassion for what they're doing, why they're doing it. I understand that this is a threat response. So they're seeing threat. Again, I don't approve of what they're doing at all. But I would want to help the person be more resourced because they're supremely under-resourced where it comes to the brain. I have this card on my website. I'll go find it afterwards and put it in the chat. It's called the Moment of Choice Rescue Card. And so you hold it up on one side and it says, despite appearances, I want to work this out with you. So you hold that up. And on the other side, it says, I need to stop right now. I'm overreactive. I can't think. And so I need to take a time out so that I can sort through what's going on for me and then return and hear you and work this out. So it's just important to know what's happening to us on a, physiological level. It's normal. It helps us to just normalize and understand that's where it's coming from, but also recognizing that maybe not the best strategy. I don't have very good, effective strategies for working through differences. So this can help with that. All right. So let's go to page 10. And if you can think of a situation, it doesn't matter who it is, and please choose something that you're willing to share, at least in your small group, because I will invite you into a small group. You write down what someone says directed to you that you interpret as containing blame or criticism. Okay. And it could be that they're talking to you about your controlling, you're this, but maybe they're talking about someone else too. My spouse is this way. My child is this way. So it's full of blame. And you write that down. And then what you're going to do is you're going to try to guess, how's this person feeling? And then you're going to try to guess what their needs are. You don't have to be accurate. What you're trying to do is understand what's happening inside the person. This will help them. By the way, I do find that if you ask a person, because you might ask me this question, isn't it a bit invasive to ask a person, like, are you feeling this way and are you needing this? But it's my experience and that of trainers who've been doing this for a long time, that people generally welcome that. If you ask a person how they're feeling or what they're needing, they're unlikely to be able to answer it, at least in the context of what we're talking about now. They might say something like, oh, I feel that was a perfectly inappropriate thing to do. I didn't tell you anything about how I feel. What do you need? I need them to stop. It's not a need. Needing someone to stop is not a need. the needs are universal. So you'll find that people will not be using the language you're using. So you start to teach them very subtly by how you engage. So you'll guess the feeling, you'll guess the need, and then number 4, you put it together. Are you feeling this because you're needing this? Remember, you don't have to be right. You just have to be sincerely interested in what's alive in the other person. Okay? So I'll just give you, I don't know, 4 minutes to fill that out, and then we'll come back and look at a few of them. Okay, so you might not be done, but hopefully you've got enough of it done. I'm wondering if anybody would be willing to share their particular scenario. We just review it, see how that might land for the person.
Come on, people.
Not all at once. Maria.
This is a personal experience. It's really, really painful.
Okay.
And just to say that I've lost the dearest friend in the world because of this. Yes, forever. Anyway, just to make it very brief, I have a dear, dear friend way, way back from when we were kids till college. And she had a very interesting life, to say the very least. A lot of love affairs, etc., drug taking, drinking, prescription, etc. So we remained close. Then about 10 years ago, she said, you know, why don't you come and visit me and stay with me? And I said, sure, I'll come and visit you. But her condition was, could you help me? I said, I'll try to help you, because she knows I'm a therapist. So I said, okay, I mean, let's not go formally into this. This, you know, we'll have our chit chats. So I didn't want to make any formal commitment to whatever. So I was with her for many months. Every night we'd have a chit chat. She'd talk to me about her issues, her problems. But the feeling I was getting was she was trying to justify, you know, everything that had happened, everything that's happening. And it wasn't my place to judge. Plus the fact also that I felt like, okay, I'm staying in your house, so I have to be very, very polite, you know. So anyway, we're Roman Catholic, okay. So she said, you know, I haven't been to church for a long, long time. I said, well, you know, I mean, you gotta do what you're comfortable with. And she gave she said, I want to go to confession. And for those people who are not Catholics, you know, confession is you go to your priest and, you know, you reveal your sins, etc., to be forgiven. So I said, are you sure? You know, you haven't been to church for like, what, 15 years, 20 years? And she said, yeah. And when, I used to go to church every day. You know, I'd take her driver and he'd drive me. And I talked to the priest and I said, a friend of mine would like. He said, yeah, sure. Just ask her to come anytime. So maybe on one or two occasions she went to church with me. No pressure. I mean, she was just there. And then finally she says, yeah, I'm going to go tomorrow to confession. So I said, okay, wonderful. So the next day, I think it's a subconscious thing, but she was very late. So by the time we got to church, there was 5 minutes before the service would start. So the priest was making a sign to me to get her to go to confession if she wanted. Otherwise, he was leaving after the service. So I kept going to her. I said, he's leaving. You got to go. And I kid you not, in the middle of the whole church, she blew up. She screamed. She said, who the hell do you think you are? You know, F you. And of course, everybody just froze. So, and I could see she was seething. She was really angry. So I said, you know what? I think I'll sit in another pew. You know, I thought this would kind of just slow things down. I didn't think she wanted me beside her. So I sat in front, just quietly. Apparently she left. But when we got home to her home, what had happened is I went to my bedroom and I said, whoa, what just happened there? The door banged open. She broke the door open and she came and attacked me with a fist. Stop of hitting my face. And she said, who the fuck do you think you are? And I said, what's going on here? And she said, and she just kept repeating the same thing. Then she went back to her room. So this happened 3 times. Who the fuck do you think you are? Until she told me, get the hell out of my house, which I did that same day. So yeah, that is I think the most painful thing that was ever told me. Who the fuck do you think you are? Because I've always prided myself as I'm not a proud person, I'm not arrogant, I don't show off. So what this told me was she believes I think I'm superior to her.
Okay, let's not worry about, I mean, we could guess that and it may be accurate, but I'm going to guess that, what did you write for number 1?
Okay, what right now?
Who the F do you think you are? Is that it? Is that what you wrote?
Who the fuck do you think you are?
Okay, so
Okay.
she says that to you. What do you have a number for?
In number 4, if I at that time thought about it, are you feeling angry because you need to be respected, or are you feeling angry because you feel I judged you?
No, leave yourself out of it. Okay. This is one thing. I'm so glad you're doing that, because because it's so tempting to say, are you feeling because I do this? Okay.
Yes,
But you want to separate what you do from how they feel. So in NVC, we're just sticking, are you feeling because you keep yourself out of it?
Okay.
Because otherwise you're going to get swallowed.
Yes, which I think.
And she'll go, yeah, exactly. It's because of you, you don't want to feed that.
Yeah.
So
And it's still 8 years down the line. I'm still feeling.
Yes. Okay. So what you said the first time, I would say, I would absolutely try that. So let's do it. I'm your friend.
Okay.
We're doing a replay. Okay.
Okay.
So who the fuck do you think you are?
Are you feeling angry right now? Okay. Are you feeling that I've
No. What you said the first time.
Are you feeling that you're angry right now?
No. Are you feeling angry because you need respect?
Because you need respect.
Absolutely. Okay. I'm so tired of this. You don't respect me. Okay. Why are you pushing me around at the church, making me, embarrassing me in front of everybody?
Okay.
Okay. Now you're wondering, what are you going to do now?
Okay. Right.
I would repeat myself.
Are you feeling angry?
Yeah, but this time change it a little bit, because it'll be very annoying for people if you just say exactly the same thing without any change in the energy, right? You see, because it'll just be robotic. So you can say something like, you're clearly pissed.
Yes,
okay?
Yes.
Like change, just switch it up again, but keep the word respect in there. Keep that in there.
Yeah. You're clearly upset that I'm not I'm not respecting you. You're clearly upset. You don't feel respected.
Yeah. Okay. Now, every time you do that, she's likely to come down again. She's not going to punch you.
No.
Unlikely. Okay.
Yeah.
The more you can even drop the feeling if you want. Okay. Once the feeling's identified, you can just go, okay, you really didn't get the sense that you're being respected, but don't say I. Don't say me. Okay.
Yes.
Don't
Thank
get
you.
Yeah. Okay. Keep it clean. That's what belongs to you belongs to you. What belongs to her belongs to her.
Belongs to her.
You're
Okay. Yes.
Keep the lines clean. This is clear boundaries. Okay.
Yes. Very clear. Thank you.
Yeah. So you have a need for respect. And then, then at some point it might be that the person would say to you, yeah, like, I don't, it's not like I'm a kid. You don't need to be telling me what to do. Yeah. So you just repeat that back. You just kind of go, but you change it a bit.
Yes.
You want respect for your choice.
Yes.
That you'll know when it's time for you to go.
Is it okay for me to say, I'm sorry, I have been treating you like a child?
No,
brings me back again into the picture.
Wait, I'm not going to say, I'm saying no, but I'm saying not now.
Not now.
You want to apologize later. But don't even buy into the fact that you're treating the person like a child. What if she had gone? And what if she had said, thank you so much for being such a good friend and supporting me? Okay. The idea of treating someone like a child, this is the narrative we're starting to make up about what's happening. Just stick with the facts.
Okay.
She told you she wanted to go to confession.
Yeah,
You were
yes.
trying to support her in doing that. When it came to it, she backed out of it for whatever reason, probably felt
Right.
fear, probably thought, oh my
Yes.
God, you know, it's been
Yes.
so long, I'll probably be there for a year.
Yes.
You know, but you stick with that. You want respect. This raises the person. So let her get in touch with her own need for respect and let her respect herself, because you can bet that she's probably got all sorts of horrible thoughts about herself.
Yes, yes.
Because
Absolutely.
that's what most of us do. You know, if someone else isn't wrong, we make ourselves wrong. That's the good, bad, right, wrong way of thinking. It's just
right.
It's just the duality. And so,
Yes. Yes.
so you want to get to that place. And at
Yes.
some point, if you're saying you don't want to get to apology, you want to get to connection.
Connection. Okay.
That the connection is primary. And then it could be, you know what? I feel bad because I wish now you're telling me, and I didn't think about this before.
Yes.
I can see that it's probably a pretty scary thing, and you really wanted to be able to choose the time. And when I was telling you, it felt like pressure. You didn't want that.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So, and I'm sorry about that. Okay. You
Yes.
get all the needs out there first.
Right.
Usually we just say, I'm sorry to buy forgiveness, or it doesn't connect. And haven't you ever, I'm sure you've all been in a situation where someone says, I'm sorry to you, and you're thinking, sorry, it just doesn't work. I'm not connecting to that.
Yes.
But if someone says to you, I'm really mourning the fact that I wasn't there in the way that I would have liked to have been.
Yes.
In hindsight's 2020, but in the moment,
yes.
I wasn't seen the way that I would like to be seen.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You can feel how it softens, right? You can
right.
energetically feel the softening that happens as a result of that. So
thank you. Thank you.
So that's a great example. Yeah. Anas, you have your hand up. Is that because from before, or is it new?
I gotta take that
It's
down.
a new.
Oh, it's a new. Okay, so let me ask
Yes.
what
if I may just say, the situation is talking to my son. Let's take like a simple one and short and to the point, as they say. Talking to my son when he doesn't when he does the same, mistakes regularly, like many times, and like, for example, washing his hand after going out or coming back from outside. And number two, feelings. How do you feel at the moment of this? That I feel like, I've been like teaching him, taking him by his hand and going together, and we doing this. So you feel like the effort that you have done it is not reached. So I feel like, was I bad in teaching him, or it's just my mistake? There's a fault in the way approaching my sons and those stuff. That's the real
okay, so you're talking about your feelings. I'm wondering about his feelings. And how old is he?
He's 7 years old.
7. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so he's 7 years old.
I'm giving you just example of his
no,
character.
great. So
Yeah.
what does you tell him to wipe go wash your hands, and what does he say to you? Like, what's his?
Yes, he comes and then zone out like for 2 seconds and say, I forgot.
Okay. So how do
Yeah.
you think he's feeling? Do you remember being 7?
Yes, his feeling is a little bit freezing, and he feels a little bit like attacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a short time, but he realized that I've done something wrong. But that's fear mixed with he's scared, he wants to just get out of it.
Okay, let's try this out. So Dad, you're telling me to wash my hands. And can you just tell me what you would write for number 4? Ask me how I'm feeling and what my needs are.
In number 4, what might you ask in order to establish a connection? I would really like approach it in a different way. Can we go together, for example? and wash
You know,
it again.
we can do that, but you still don't know what's going on for me. And I'd really like you to work a
Mm.
little harder and try to guess what's going on for me.
Yeah. Let us say, how you feeling? I mean, when you don't like,
You can ask me.
uh,
I just don't like it when you're always telling me what to do.
and you feel like you're not understood by your dad or something like that?
Now let's hear a feeling.
Sorry?
That a feeling, not understood isn't a feeling.
Feeling.
How is he feeling? We'll go
How
with
would you love to approach you next time and to tell you about these things?
now you want me to solve the problem and you're the adult around here. You figure it out. Okay. I know, sorry, I'm sure your 7-year-old isn't mouthy like that, but I'm trying to help you to get to how's he feeling? Is he annoyed? Is he frustrated? Is he bored? Is he just like, what's his feeling?
His feeling is a little bit worried.
Okay, so he's worried. Okay, are you feeling concerned or worried because you have a need? What's his need? Now, you mentioned earlier you think he wants to do things right. Okay, which is, I would encourage you to get off of the right-wrong track, but I know kids can do that too, right?
Yeah.
So, but if he could talk back to you, what would he say? He doesn't sound like he's that kind of child, but let's just imagine, hey, you can say anything you want to me. You don't have to worry about any retribution, any consequences. What's he going to say to you? Leave me alone.
Well,
I'll figure it out. I'll wash my hands when I want to.
he would try to get rid of the whole situation and change the topic. Like he would will be unfocused. Oh, what happened to this? What happened to that? It's like a tricky way.
Yeah. So you could just try, look, you don't have to be right about it, okay? So we could just relieve any pressure that you have about getting this right, but it could be, hey, when I ask you to wash your hands, and then you change the subject, okay? If that's what he's doing, are you feeling annoyed or bored? And you just have a need to choose when you're going to do it? We don't know.
Let's imagine that I'm bored of it. How we react.
Okay, so he's bored. So are you feeling bored because you'd rather do something else than wash your hands? Does that seem fair? Seems fair enough, eh? Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to do it. This is not necessary. You're always asking me to do it. So you don't really see the relevance in it. Is that it? At some point, you are going to shift over to honesty. Okay.
Yes.
Because right now we're empathizing, right? And I know you were trying to get to honesty.
No, I got you.
You're gonna do that.
Right. So empathizing, the process is approaching, first understanding, identifying, the fear or the situation, and then sympathizing or empathizing, and then gradually going, to the sense things or the direct reality, let's say what should be done, and formulating my words in different, it reminds me with like some direct and indirect like requests, like, can I help you right away? Or, wow, let's figure out, what can we do together, and those stuff. So you kind of simplifying the ideas, because the tune of the word sometimes it's really painful. And I start really to get, the what is behind this lessons or this, lecture, that the way, the tune, the even the body language can affect, the whole shift of the conversation, and drive it into different areas, or soothe it, and make it like gentle and understood, and you take the benefit of it. I tried, to solve number 5, casting on the situation that happened one. So what I said is, when I see you doing this, I feel that I couldn't succeed if teaching you how to clean your hand after going to the bathroom. Because, so that's that's what I feel.
When I see you not washing your hands, I feel some frustration. Okay, because I'd like to be able to, because I care about your health and I care about your health and well-being and everybody's health in the household. And I'd like to ask you what you're hearing me say right now. That's your request.
Sorry.
You would ask him, can you tell me what you're hearing me say right now? Oh, Dad, like it's complicated. I don't know. You're just angry all the time because I don't wash my hands. Okay, thank you for telling me what you're hearing. I'd like to be heard differently. So I'll try it again because that didn't land very well, right? So it's just that I care about everybody's health in the household. And I know that right now it's the fall and back to school and germs are spreading easily and I want to protect us all. And one of the best ways to do it is hand washing. So I'm going to ask you again, what are you hearing me say now? Okay, you're drawing attention to where you want the child's like thinking to go. Okay, like you're really, now I don't know how your son's going to respond because he sounds like he'll be a soft spoken, but okay, it might just be, you just want to make sure that we don't get sick. And if he says that, you can say, yeah, I want to protect everyone. So I'm wondering what it would take. Like, are you willing to do that? And, together as a team, is there some way I can help you so that you're less likely to forget? You get problem solving together. What can we do? Do we make a sign? What do you think would be a good idea? See, to me, that's not, the self-esteem is not touched by this. It's raised. It's like, hey, we're going to do this together.
Yeah. What I suggested is what I've written. Yeah, I somehow looked like what he said exactly, but it said because I want you to be the cleanest and the safest, and all of the household are very healthy and their stuff. So, and then I will ask him. I mean, would you be willing to clean your hands in a wonderful way? And if you don't like the soap, we can we can change it. We can buy you something that you like. And yeah, and the kids. But I got the main ideas.
Yeah.
And maybe this is example, we can learn it. But as you mentioned, that you come to a point in your life that you see the whole truth right away in the front of you, and you say, "Oh my God, been doing this wrong for my entire life," and then you get it for the seconds.
Well, let me help you with the idea that doing things wrong. Marshall used to say this: I've never done anything wrong, and I never will. I have done things in the past that I would not have done if I had known what I have since learned.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel the spaciousness in that? It doesn't kind of put you, oh, I was wrong, and then I got to get right. It puts you in this very rigid way.
Even choosing the word here change the whole context.
Yes.
Like yeah, I was doing it and I will do it better, let's say.
Yeah. So a great example. Yeah. I just let's see, Yvonne, you'll have to unmute. You've got your hand up.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, mine was a little bit different. Not, I don't know if you had based on your time, but talking about like nonviolent communication and more related to DV, right? Domestic violence.
Okay.
And or violence of any sort. I mean, I think that at that time, you're definitely right about the amygdala and the fight, flight, or freeze. I've seen most victims at least freeze, and depending on the relationship of the people. But I mean, is that part of the, like, what I would say is keeping safe is the first priority.
Yes.
Like, in that, like you would not be having conversations during that time. But and I think that is the one thing, is that also to pause, like, and to get away from that if it's not the right time, because always we cannot have this communication free flowing from both ends. And, you know, especially sometimes you need time to process or, you know, find the right tools even and at the right time with the other, right? So is there any, you know, feedback for that or?
Well, what's the question exactly? I mean, you started out with talking about in domestic violence.
Violence, yeah. Like, I mean, like if somebody's having an argument, like just like Maria said, I mean, not to pull back the full example, but, you know, of being attacked or.
Right. Okay, so physical, physical attack.
Yeah, and verbal as well if it can get too escalated, right?
You know, I mean, I'm going to say a couple of things about it. First of all, nonviolent communication makes a distinction between protective use of force and punitive use of force. So self-defense is protective. And then, you know, punitive is something I'm going to get back at you, or vengeance or revenge, right? So sometimes it's hard to actually know the difference, but internally we know the difference between protective and punitive when we're doing it. Right. Another thing is that I don't know where I heard this, but it makes complete sense to me that in pretty much all violence where people know each other, and often too when people don't, there have been at least 3 verbal exchanges first. Now that tells you something, because those verbal exchanges are so important. If you can empathize with someone, it makes a difference. So Marshall in his book talks about how when he goes into a detox center, I'll go back. He talks in his book about a woman who attended one of his trainings. She works at a detox center in Toronto. And she had attended a day-long training with Marshall, and then she returned for more training, and she was telling the story of something that had occurred to her while she was working at the detox center. So it's late at night, someone walks in, he's clearly, under the influence of some drug or alcohol, and he says, "I want a room." And she says, "I'm sorry, but we don't have any rooms available." And he says, you do too have a room. "I want a room." And the next thing you know, he's behind the desk, she's on the floor, and he's sitting on top of her. And she's just attended a workshop. And what she does is she says, "Marshall, I remember something you said. You said, never stick your butt in the face of an angry person." Because I was just about to say, but it's true, we don't. And I didn't. So I said, "Are you angry because you have a need for respect?" There's that word again, okay? Respect. "You're damn right I need respect. I'm tired of not getting respect." And she just kept saying it. "So you have a need for respect. You're not getting the respect that you need." And she said, "Something very interesting happened to me, Marshall. The more I responded to him in that way, the less I saw him as a monster. I saw him as a human being, just like the rest of us, trying to get his needs met and not being very successful at doing it." He eventually got off of me, and I said to him, "I'm going to call another shelter and make arrangements for you to be there." And then, so she tells the story in the workshop, and Marshall says, "Well, it seems to me that you've mastered the art of empathy. Why are you back here?" She says, "Well, now I have a real hard one. It's my mother. The next day, I told my mother how I had, successfully worked this out with this person. And she said to me, 'You have to get another job. You can't stay in that job.' And then I said, 'But mother, it's my life.' And then there goes our disconnection. So I need to learn how to empathize with my mother." Which also shows the fact that oftentimes it's easier to empathize with a stranger than with someone we know, because with someone we know, we have history, and therefore habit. We have the habit of our history, and it takes over. It's so hard to be able to just stop and say, "Hey, let's do something different. We're going to do something different." So another thing I wanted to say about this was that I attended an advanced training with Marshall in Chicago one time, and one of the participants was a judge, and he was a New York judge, and he said, "I've seen a lot of domestic violence cases. I mean, there's no way that this would work, okay? Because you have to use punishment with these people." So that's what he was saying, and he'd even written a book about it. Okay, so he was a guy who he had a lot of expertise. And so Marshall proposed the following in a group of 30 people. He said, well, let's role play it. You be the guy. You know, most often it's the man who's perpetrating the violence on the woman. It's not always, but in this case, that was what they played. So the judge was that person, and Marshall played the woman. And he said, and I want to prepare everyone here. I'm going to have to give myself a lot of empathy while I'm doing this, because there's no way I'm going to be able to respond like that quickly. So he was demonstrating what it would be like. After a while of doing this, you actually get some skill. But he would put his hand on top of his head to illustrate that he was talking to himself silently, but he would do it out loud. So the guy comes in and he says, what the hell are you doing? Watching TV? How come dinner's not on the table? And he just like laced in, and it was actually very frightening. And I'm just going to say, there were a few people in the workshop who were needing attention afterwards because it was so frightening for them, because the guy played it so well. And Marshall put his hand on his head. He said, I'm feeling so scared right now. I have a need for safety and protection. And I'm also not knowing what to do in this moment, because anything I say could actually activate him even more. It could escalate. So I'm going to just try to empathize with him. So are you feeling angry because you have a need for some food right now and you were hoping it would be ready? You're damn right, bitch. And, so it went on. There were a few exchanges. And at some point, the guy picked up, it was a plastic cup, but he threw it across the room at Marshall. And what he did then, honestly, I'll never forget it, because I just feel it moved me so tremendously. He gave himself the empathy, and then he got up and he went over and he picked up the cup and he said, if you don't mind, I'm going to go and start dinner right now. He said it in this voice. Now, you might not agree, but I think that the way it was set up, that he took what he saw was the most self-protected action he could take. He could decide afterwards that I'm out of here or whatever, but it's not often the choice that's made, right? But it was one of the most powerful exchanges I've ever seen Marshall do. I mean, people were moved. And here's the other thing. The judge looked at him at the end and said, I give up, you win. There's no way I would have been able to continue to attack you given how you were responding to me. He said, I just couldn't do it. So what we say has enormous power to be disarming. It also has enormous power to escalate, to provoke, to be attacking. So, and I understand why people would choose the attack to defend themselves. But there's plenty of incidences or cases of stories where people have gotten out of difficult situations because they did something counterintuitive. So thank you for the question. And does that answer it, Yvonne?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. I want to share with you that there's always ways that we can respond. And one of the things, if you've ever seen Marshall, and if you decide to go look him up, you can find plenty of YouTube videos of him. He uses puppets. And so I'm just going to introduce them to you, because I think that they're a very useful tool. And especially if you are working with young kids, because they have a way of kind of removing the sense of self-consciousness that a child might have, and you bring some play into the exchange. So Marshall had these two puppets. Well, here, I'm just going to change hang on a second here. I blur my background so it's not so busy looking, but anyway. Okay, so here we have the giraffe, okay? And the giraffe is the symbol of compassionate communication because it has the largest heart of any land mammal. And because it's got that very long neck, it's also able to predict. You know, it can see the horizon and can tell what's going to happen. So you become predictive. You know, you can probably tell how people are going to respond. You don't need to be, you just need to pay attention, you know, because we're all kind of made the same. And if somebody says something that's uses name calling, you know that pretty much what's going to happen is the person is going to respond in a defensive way, you know. And we'll use the example of, you're so selfish. Have you ever been in the situation where you say you're so selfish and the person says, thank you so much for that diagnosis. I so appreciate hearing that. I can tell that your needs for consideration haven't been met. So now I'm going to do something to support you getting that. That's not what happens, even though on some level, that's what we want. But we're not engaging in that language. So we're in the defensive mode. So you have the giraffe, compassionate communication. And then the other one is the jackal. So the jackal is just interested in, you know, like getting what it wants immediately. And so, and I want to say, we have jackals, real jackals in the world and real giraffes in the world. And we're not trying to demonize or elevate or anything like that. But this sometimes is very useful just to illustrate. And Marshall, when he had these, he would have a little finger puppet, which I don't have, of a giraffe. And he would say, inside every jackal is a giraffe just trying to get out, you know? So there's that. And the other thing is the ears, which I find very good. Marshall would say, I'm going to introduce you to the best technology that's ever existed. These giraffe ears. You want this. You want this look, right? So when you're wearing giraffe ears, all you hear is please and thank you. Please is an opportunity to enrich life, and thank you is a celebration when life has been enriched. So the certain language that we use, it just doesn't exist because you're going to translate it into feelings and needs. So that's all that you have. Someone you can't even get insulted when you have ears on like this. So it takes practice, mind you. Okay, you have to kind of create some distance so you understand that people are only speaking in terms of feelings and needs, even though they're adding all their judgments on top, and it's sometimes very hard to hear. And the other ears are the jackal ears. It doesn't matter what you say, even a compliment, I'll turn it into an insult. Someone says, oh, I really love what you're wearing today. Oh, really? You tell me today, but you didn't tell me yesterday when I was wearing the best, you know, whatever. You've been around people like that, right? They call them high conflict people. So there's that. So when you have these ears on, you know, you're busy evaluating and judging, and you can turn them around this way as well, where you're busy doing the same thing to yourself. You're evaluating yourself negatively. You're judging yourself, what an awful person you are, all of these things. So that's the self-blame. And as Marshall would say, some people are very talented with this and they're ambidextrous, you know, can do it both ways. So that's the technology. And so what we've been concentrating on with the empathy is to be able to turn a difficult or hard to hear message into an expression of feelings and needs, which is the life energy inside of a person. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I see we have just a few minutes left. I'm wondering if there are any, if Marilyn, maybe you want to say something, or if there are any burning questions that I can answer in a brief period of time.
I just want to say to you now, and if somebody else has questions, of course I will be brief, that what I love about this is that you're presenting that we all have this stuff inside. And I think that way, knowing that, there's more potential for connection with other human beings, understanding that, oh, okay, something's going on that other person, or something is going on in me today. Yeah, I love it. I love nonviolent communication, and I'm so thankful that you have you know, taking the time. It's 3 hours. I know that it needs a lot more, like a whole week.
Yes, yeah, it needs a lot more. There's so many different aspects to it, you know, and just so much that I didn't get into, but you do have that handout there, and I do have a lot on my website. I have free resources, and there's a page there that has that moment of choice rescue card and other tools to support your learning. And the feelings and needs list, you can print that off, give it to clients. It's helpful for them to understand. You can say, hey, I'm studying nonviolent communication. You ever heard of it? Here's a way that we look at how we're feeling, and it can help us to be, you know, better communicators with each other and get closer to each other. Yeah.
And I think it's so great to be able to practice it with our children too, sharing all that too.
Yes.
With the kids. And
yes. Yeah.
Anybody else? Some questions?
I would like to learn more in VC. Well, like I said, on my website, RachelleLam.com, also the Nonviolent Communication website. And honestly, there are a lot of videos of Marshall delivering. And I would just like do on YouTube, you go to Introduction to Nonviolent Communication with Marshall Rosenberg. They're very rich. Yeah. Marshall Rosenberg. Yeah. Yeah. And then there's the book, Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life. There, that was it. So I was showing it to you earlier.
Wow.
And there's trainings that I offer. I used to do online trainings. I just didn't plan any for the fall. I just didn't. I didn't want to market. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I want to say again, thank you, everybody.
Okay, well, and thank you to whoever was holding down the fort so that you could be here, because I know it's not easy to organize your time. I'm sure there's other people who were wanting to have you with them, and you're here. So yeah, much appreciated. I'm so grateful for people who are willing to just explore other ways of connecting, because I think our world is in desperate need of it. Yes. And it just always it's medicine for me to have, you know, a whole bunch of people showing up, and then I go, okay, maybe we have a chance at something. So
maybe a few organizations can get together and invite you. And
yes, yeah. As you can see, there's a lot more, and it's of course in person would be is much better, but this is what we've got right now, so we're grateful for that. But so anyway, stay safe, healthy, generous of heart, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachelle.
Thank you so much.
Please remember to stop the recording. Stop the recording at some point.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
All the best. Take care.